Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, I hope you're all well. So we're back here with another Ask the Fro Q&A. Thank you all so much for all the questions you guys have been asking over the last few weeks. It's really cool. So I've got a load more to answer today, so let's get right into it. First question is from Richard Turner, and he says, you mentioned you have 2 Strats. Have you still got Rita Relic? Love that guitar, cheers. To answer that question, I don't have Rita Relic. I sold Rita Relic probably 3 years ago now. I sold it to fund my Custom Shop 55, which is there. Basically, I didn't get along with it. I found it really difficult to play. It sounded great and it looked great, but it wasn't easy to play, and not in a good way. It was just difficult. So yeah, basically I sold it, and yeah, it meant I could get the first Custom Shop Strat that I got, and I love that. So unfortunately, Rita Relic is no more. Next question is from AWM Joey Jojo, and he says, how often do you change the tubes on your amp heads? To answer that question, not very often. If an amp head is good, it's well designed, you don't need to change the tubes all that often. The Victory stuff, I don't think I've ever had it retubed. In fact, none of my Krakens I've had retubed since I've had them, and that's a few years. I've only had my JVM retubed once. And yeah, the 5150s I had retubed because I didn't know how old the tubes were, but they were reserviced. The preamp tubes I've not really even touched. It really depends. If your amp starts to sound awful, then you should probably get it retubed, but mine all sound pretty good, so haven't had to worry thus far. Next question is from Zovinimir Karanasic. I don't know if I said that name right, I'm really sorry if I didn't. Anyway, he asks, hi Rabea, been with your channel for a year or 2 now, thanks dude. Says, but I've noticed you aren't really drawn to Les Paul guitars. Would you mind telling me about your thoughts on the guitar and why you don't like it? Having watched your channel for quite a while now, I've always thought you sound impeccable with the Les Paul. Thank you very much. Liking the Anderton's expensive versus cheap shootout. As of only a week ago, I now own a Les Paul, which you might have seen in a video I did recently where I travelled to the US to go to NAMM, and I picked up a 1971 Les Paul Custom, and also in the beginning of this video you'll probably seen a little bit of playing with that guitar. But to go back to your question, you are right in saying that I've said in the past I'm not a fan of Les Pauls. I haven't been for a long time, and that's not because they're bad guitars in any way. I just never got along with them. I was chatting with a friend of mine, and he was saying how like you have to fight with a Les Paul, and you do. In a similar vein to how you have to fight with a Fender Strat. And when I mean fight, I mean it just makes you work a bit harder for the licks. It's not like the most forgiving playing guitar. Like the Music Man JP15 is a phenomenal guitar, and it's so easy to play, as is the British Standard Chapman, to an extent even mine, although I did take some inspiration from my Fenders to try and make it a little bit more, you just have to work a bit harder. And so I wasn't used to that kind of fight with a Gibson. I've always used Fenders and Strats and Strat-shaped guitars, just that kind of thing. So it was a bit alien to me, and I'd never really found one that really worked. However, it wasn't until we recorded the Toska album at Middle Farm when I got to play a 78 Les Paul Custom, and I just got along with it immediately, and I thought, wow, maybe this is the year, maybe this is the kind of Les Paul for me. Which then ensued, I started looking for 78 Les Pauls, and then thus ended up with the 71. Now it's not the same year, but for some reason when I picked that up and had a go, I immediately got along with it. Maybe it's because it was refretted, the neck profile, I'm not quite sure, but I still have to fight with it. I'm not used to it yet, so I am struggling to play it properly, and that's going to take some time. Some guitars takes time to get used to it. There isn't really a good reason why I've never invested time in them before. Just hadn't found the one that I wanted, and I've always gravitated more towards Fender Strats because I'm into the bluesy, funky, that kind of playing, which Les Pauls, and it's not that you can't do the funk thing on a Les Paul, you can absolutely do the blues thing on a Les Paul, but in terms of funk, I don't know, it's just never really been my kind of guitar until recently, and I'm working towards getting better with a Les Paul, so that's why I have that beast there. Next question is from Gabriel, says, in your opinion, what is the most versatile guitar you have? Is there any that you don't have that you think will be more versatile? My guess is your beer signature. So I did a video recently called Battle of the Sigs, which I'll put a link in the description box, where I was just shooting out some signature model guitars that I have, like Paul's guitar, the Nuno guitars, my guitar. And I think the most tonally versatile were the PRS and my signature and the JP15. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the most versatile because they have the most sounds. It could just be that you can easily shred on it, you can easily play funk, you can easily play blues. It just lets you play whatever you want on it. It's hard because I'm used to the Beer Sigs because that's the one that I designed and it's the one that I know the best because it's my guitar, so I'm kind of used to it and I can kind of play whatever I want on it. But I would say that if we exclude my signature model, because it's kind of a little bit of a biasing thing there, I would lean towards, out of my guitars, I'm going to say either my Fender Custom Shop 61 Strat or the JP15. Now the reason that I'm saying that is because the 61 Strat, it's a Strat, but the neck pickup, the bridge pickup sounds fat and you can really get some hard, heavy rock tones out of it. The neck profile is great for lead, for like shred, for blues, for funk, it can kind of do a bit of everything. And then of course you got 3 pickups and a 5-way, so you can get so many different tones out of it. The JP15, it's got piezo in it, it's got the mag boost, the neck is this beautiful unfinished baked maple, it's super thin. I guess it's harder to do. It's really good for the technical playing and it's pretty good for the melodic feelsy playing. I tend not to try and do the bluesy stuff on it, mainly because tonally it doesn't sound that way out for the blues thing. But generally, those two are the ones that I'd lean towards to say they're the most versatile. I can't think if there's other guitars out there. Probably those. So the 61 Strat, JP15 and my Sig, I would say. Next question is from Jesse Yasatis, and the question is, does Hannah ever come down and make faces at you or try to get you to mess up when you're making content? Sometimes. See, the toilet is down here, so literally to get to the toilet you have to come down the stairs, through and then to there. It's just the way the house is laid out. So sometimes I'll be shooting for quite a while and she'll be waiting upstairs like I really need to go to the toilet. So she'll like come down the stairs and wait a minute. But generally speaking, no, she doesn't always. Sometimes. And it's pretty funny when that happens. But for me, sometimes I get a little bit in the zone. I get a bit hyper-focused on it. And if I get distracted, I'm a bit like, what's going on? Why? Why did you distract me? And then, yes, I am. It was a question. It was a question for my Q&A, which was that does Hannah ever come down and make faces at you or try to get you to mess up when you're making content? And see, she's distracting me now. I can hit, yeah. The answer is not really, but sometimes. Next question is from Michael Force, and he asks, your left hand is great, but your right hand is awesome. Thank you very much. Says, do you think the drum knowledge has something to do with your percussive style you master so well, or is it because you're an old drummer boy? I think it's because of the drums. I think it's because I was kind of like tuned into rhythm first. And what's weird is because I'm left-handed, that would have been the hi-hat hand, but play guitar right-handed, so this is the hand that I use for my percussive rhythm picking, whatever you want to call it. It was a combination of understanding drums and then watching someone like Nuno be so percussive as a guitarist, and the two combined kind of got me to just focus on that. So really, I think what I'd done is just passively practiced rhythm and that kind of playing for a long time when I was younger. But I'd say that most importantly, it's down to the fact that I played drums. I think drumming was a big influence on my rhythm playing, just because I love drums. I still watch and listen to and follow drummers all the time. I'm very much a drummer at heart and in my head. I just don't practice, so I'm not very good anymore. But I understand drums, you know, when we write the Toska stuff, like I get very, very involved in the grooves and the ideas for the parts and that kind of thing, because for me it's as much about crafting the other instruments as it is my own instrument for the music that I like to write. So yeah, basically I think it's got a lot to do with the drumming. Next question is from Marc Lawrence, and he says, Beer, what do you do for practice? Do you have a particular routine or structure, and if so, would you mind sharing it, or maybe provide some tips for developing a practice routine ourselves? I don't practice. I don't sit there and run drills, and I don't go over like scales or anything like that, or anything to a metronome. what I do is I just pick up my guitar and I play. And depending on my mood, I might want to play loads of shred stuff and just be practicing licks. When I say practice, I mean just doing licks and lots of fast guitaring. Other times I might pick up and just do like ambient chordy stuff. Other times might be focusing on... It depends what I've soaked up in the day or that week. So if I spent a lot of time with Pete or been watching players like Joey Landreth, Ariel, like Mateus Asato, like I'll want to play more like that. So I'll grab the Strat or the Telly and I'll just start trying to do that kind of thing. If I've been watching lots of guys like Guthrie, other shredders, like, let me think off the top of my head, you know, like Nuno, Guthrie, JP, Joe Satriani, like any of those guys, then I'll want to just sit down and start shredding, you know, and just playing lots of technical guitar. I don't know, basically it's whatever I kind of watch and soak up, I want to try and do it. And the thing is, I want to try and play everything. I want to try and play blues, jazz, fusion, shred, like metal, like just heavy stuff. Like I like so many different genres of music and guitar playing that I just want to know what it's like to play that stuff, and I want to know how it feels to play those licks and how it sounds to play it when it's being generated by your fingers, you know. So yeah, I'm like a sponge. I just want to soak it all up and then try and play it. Now there's an argument to say you can spread yourself thin and not be a master of anything. Like, I totally agree with that, because I don't think I'm particularly like amazing in any area of my guitar playing, but I do like to play as much different styles as I can. I just really enjoy it. So I don't know if that helps. I don't have a practice regime or anything like that. My advice would be just play, listen to other instruments, try and work out their lines, listen to sax players, work out their articulations, how they phrase things, try and learn their phrasing. You know, practice to a metronome, practice to a drum groove, like try and mess around with different rhythms. There are many ways to do it. There are so many different pathways to getting better at guitar. I don't think it's down to sitting and going, this is my hour of practice. I think it's purely about being receptive to outside influence and wanting to try and exude that through the guitar, if that makes sense. Like try and like process that through here and then out into your fingers through the guitar. I'll sit down and go, today I'm going to try and sound like Joe Bonamassa. I'm going to try and do that kind of bluesy rock thing. So I'll try and play like that. Last question is from Markie Delbs, and he says, what's the concept behind Fire by the Silos, which is the album by Toska that we released last year? In particular, stuff like the man speaking in the title track and the man with the robotic voices in The Herd. If you haven't heard the album, then either go check it out, or if you're not bothered, then you won't know anything about this question, but it doesn't really matter. Thank you for asking the question, and I should just say thank you for all the people that have bought the album or are listening to it or enjoy it. That's really cool, and I'm really grateful. The concept behind the album is, I guess, from where I'm standing, it's social commentary, and it's fictional, set in the future, maybe 20 years in the future, but it's like what I see going on in the world right now. Whether it's political, economic, like environmental. There are many ways it could go. I don't want to get really political on this or like super like controversial, but what I think I tried to sort of, what's the word? I tried to kind of articulate a certain scenario of what could happen or what may happen in this kind of fictional landscape, you know, set in the future, 20 years or so. So the idea is it follows the story of this guy that worked for, you know, some government body like the ministry, as he says in the title track. And the idea is that he tried his hardest, but he didn't achieve what was asked of him. And the government in this world decided that anybody earning under a certain, you know, wage, so let's say anyone earning under 30k a year was cast out of society. Basically, you know, like the Hunger Games, how everyone lives in these like really dystopic kind of areas, and then there's the capital, kind of like that kind of thing. And it follows the story of this guy that was just like tried so hard, he thought he was, you know, part of it, but actually he was cast out and no one cared about it. And he kind of goes insane throughout the whole album. He kind of goes through into getting more and more like angry about it and more intense, and wants to seek revenge, and he wants to like overthrow this powerful, the capital, the state or whatever. And so each song kind of represents a different part emotionally in his head of how he's either like sad, or he's angry, or he's like going psychotic, or he's like hopeless or hopeful, or, you know, just all these different emotions. And then to round it off with like the prayer monger and the herd, the idea is that after all of this effort and all of this like trying to create an uprising and try and get people to think like him and help him overthrow this world that's occurring, is like he's no better off, he's no better than the people that cast him out, if that makes sense, because what he's doing is basically the same thing they did to him, but he's so like eaten up by his anger, and basically he realizes at the end, he's like, I've just fought fire with fire, and that's exactly what I didn't want to do. And then it becomes quite sad and quite it kind of comes full circle. I don't know if that made sense, but it's kind of quite a long-winded idea. I think it's quite cool, and I think it would make a cool film, but in any case probably won't. But yeah, thank you for asking the question, and I hope you enjoyed the album, and I hope anyone else that got it enjoyed it as well. Anyway, that was Ask the Fro. Thank you for the questions. If you've got any more questions, bang them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Until next time, I've been Rabea, and I'll see you all very soon.